In this video, we are going to break down 5 of the most dangerous helicopter pilot jobs, and for you to determine if it's worth the risk, I just want to preface this. This is one of my least favorite things to talk about in the industry. It sucks because helicopters are inherently kind of dangerous, and you can get hurt and you can die, and that part sucks about the industry. But if you're thinking about becoming a helicopter pilot, I want you to have the full scope of information. So in this video, we're going to break down 5 of the more risky helicopter pilot jobs, go over the aspects of it, and you can determine if it's worth it.
That's like autopilot, dude. How do you fly a helicopter? Well, I'm going to show you.
Alright, number 5 is ENG, or electronic news gathering. This is news and media flying. Now, this is a pretty fun job if you're flying for a local news agency, going up with a reporter, taking pictures of traffic and stuff, but sometimes you're doing more dynamic stuff like police chases, and police chases are cool. The problem with some of these more dangerous activities is you're typically flying relatively low. You can't be super high and get a good shot, so you have to be relatively low. This puts you closer to power lines, obstacles, buildings, and stuff. The other thing with this is there is sometimes a lot of pressure to go and fly and get the best images, and maybe you shouldn't be flying when the weather's not that good, and there's just a lot of pressure to get out there. When you're also flying, when there's something cool going on, there's likely other helicopters. So you're talking about flying helicopters low level during the day or night, maybe in conditions that are not the most favorable to fly, and you're likely talking about flying with other helicopters in close proximity. So there's just a lot of holes in the Swiss cheese that we talk about here. There's just a lot of dynamic moving parts, and if things go wrong, things can go wrong. So something to think about. All right, number 4 is EMS pilots. This is what I do. You're often flying in poor weather and at night. Now, when we say poor, I'm not saying like snow, rain, fog. It's just sometimes you don't always get to fly on beautiful clear days or beautiful clear nights. Sometimes you have to fly when conditions are not that great. Now, we have to follow FAA minimums and company minimums. However, sometimes you're flying in not great weather conditions. That part is hazardous, especially when you're flying in not great weather conditions at night. This is adding into the risk. The other thing here is you're typically landing in tight, unpredictable locations, especially if you're doing scene calls. You know, if someone gets hurt on a back remote road somewhere, you're landing maybe on a road that's unlit, and the only lights you have are from firefighters shining their flashlights or shining their car lights onto a scene. It could have slopes, there could be wires that you don't know about, there could be FOD, foreign object debris. So the risk parameters for this are pretty high. Nighttime, maybe bad weather, and an unapproved landing zone, remote, challenging conditions. This makes the danger higher. Number 3 is offshore oil rig flying. Now, in general, this is a very safe way to operate a helicopter. You're not doing anything weird with the helicopter. There's not too many obstacles that you can hit when you're over water. The main reason I said that this is kind of a dangerous position is there is no emergency landing or precautionary landing spots when you're over water. You can do offshore oil rig stuff in a single engine helicopter, like a Bell 206, a Bell 407, which if you have something happen like a chip light, obviously if you have an engine failure, you just have the water, and these helicopters typically have floats on them. But if you have a chip light and you need to land, it's tough. If you do your fuel calculations wrong and you have to land, you're in a tough position. The problem with being out over water is if anything goes wrong, there is nowhere to land, which makes it really challenging. Now, offshore oil rigs also have the challenges of high winds and rapidly changing weather conditions. The high winds you can deal with, but it makes it pretty uncomfortable, and strong turbulence kind of sucks. But changing weather conditions, clouds move in, ceilings drop, and you could have like a pretty good day, and then it quickly turns into poor weather conditions, and now you're really working, and the risk of problems goes up. So offshore oil rigs are typically a safe way to operate a helicopter, but this can be dangerous, and if things go wrong, it's a bad place to be. All right, number 2 is power line and utility pilots. Now, in my head, this one is just like very risky, but really fun, cool, dynamic, aggressive flying. You're wearing that helicopter on your back, and it is a great position to be in. However, this requires extreme precision, and you are typically flying in the wire environment. We call it in the wire environment, but this is when you're operating near power power lines, power poles, and this is very hazardous. A helicopter can be a very nimble machine, especially the type of helicopter you're using, like an MD-500, a 407, an A-Star, whatever you're using, a K-Max. They can be nimble, but if you're operating in a wire environment close to power lines, like doing utility work, things can go wrong. And if you get too close to the power line, or something happens, or something shifts and you go into the power lines, I mean, that's obviously how accidents can happen. You're also in utility using the helicopter to its limits. So if you're building stuff or putting stuff together or pulling a line across power poles, you're operating the helicopter typically close to its max limit. Even if it's just you in there, the helicopter is working hard. So you've typically got like an external load or something hooked up to the helicopter. You're pulling, lifting. The helicopter is working really hard, and this adds more strain to the aircraft and could cause something to shift, buckle, break, or fail, which is obviously dangerous. Any miscalculation in this job anywhere in power line to utility could be fatal. You are operating on the knife's edge of precision. Extremely cool work, extremely dynamic. You are using your hands, your feet, your brain, and it is, I can't speak enough to what these pilots do. They do incredible stuff, but you are on the knife's edge of where things can go wrong, and things do go wrong, and that's something you need to think about. All right, and the number one risk job in my perspective is firefighting. Firefighting is extremely risky flying, very cool, very important work, but it is quite risky. There's a couple of reasons why. You're flying in low visibility, smoky conditions, turbulent conditions. A fire, fires can typically happen when it's very windy, like a big wildfire has happened. It's getting blown and growing to become a wildfire due to strong winds, so it's turbulent. And then you have all these updrafts and changing wind conditions, very turbulent conditions, poor visibility, smoky, hot. There's a lot going on. Then you have to think about rising terrain. You're operating very low level to drop water on these fires. So very low level. There's other aircraft in the area. You're dealing with firefighters, multiple communication channels, hot conditions, especially if you're doing this at night. The dynamics here are utterly insane. It is so cool. It is utterly fascinating. The dynamics here are crazy. Also, flying in these high heat conditions can cause aircraft parts to struggle. You're flying the helicopter at the limit. Typically, I mean, you're doing some pretty crazy maneuvers, pulling away, using the aircraft and working that engine. You're not just like steady state flying. You're lowering collective up and down, maneuvering the helicopter. You're just putting a lot of strain on the aircraft, which could cause mechanical failures. It's also very hard on the body. If you're fighting fires during the day, that's extremely hard. If you're doing this at night, that is extremely hard under night vision goggles. And after a long time of doing this, like hours of doing this, your fatigue could go up, and then the likelihood of risk in accidents is exponential with this. So there you go. I obviously didn't cover every single aspect of it, and I'm sure I forgot some aspects of each one of these jobs, which makes them dangerous. They all have ways to make them safer, but they are all inherently dangerous. This part of this job sucks. When accidents happen, when crashes happen, when people die, this is like the number one thing I hate about this industry. I never get over it. It never feels okay or good, but accidents are part of the industry. We choose it because we accept the risk, and some of us accept more risk than others. The industry I'm in is relatively risky, but it's not as risky as some. You can choose the risk for whatever you want. If you're going to become a helicopter pilot, you can do really safe stuff. You can do really cool, exciting, and dangerous stuff. You got to make that decision for yourself. So let me know down in the comments below, do you think the risk is worth the reward for these jobs? Some of them you're compensated well for, and it's really rewarding. Is the risk worth it? I want to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. And if you found yourself enjoying this video at any point, smash the like button, subscribe for all kinds of helicopter content, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.